we made, it doesn't matter. Oh, well, maybe I don't know if it matters. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it's not going anywhere right now. Like it's not, nobody's in the room, so it's actually not. I'm actually just.
So I'm gonna press play now.
And so I don't know if you know this, Lex, but we've been doing this kind of fun thing. We always open the same way we do all of them, just so you know. And then we go to the second one. We always say this is a recorded podcast, you know, blah, 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 you know, this is a hi, special guest. We'll introduce you. Actually, Decky and Andrew always participate with us in addition to producing. And we tease them a lot. Like, I don't know if we're going to do it today, but
You get to name yourself. I don't even know.
We get to name ourselves, and for the last 2 weeks, one was food and one was comedy, and each time I just name myself Today I'm renaming myself like I'm making the sound of a mantra. We're doing gratitude. It's just been a thing we've been doing. You don't have to do it. It's just become my shtick that every time I do a different version of spelled out. So I'm doing this time as my name for gratitude. It's just a stupid thing I've been doing. Last week, Decky was Decky White Cocoa, and because we were doing kitchen, and Andrew was white chocolate. And they joke a lot about being white comedian podcasters. Like, we need more of those in the world. So we do a lot of riffing on. By the way, you guys, have you met, right? You know Andy and Decky?
Yeah.
Andrew and Decky?
Yeah. Yeah, we were on a call before.
At a certain point, yeah, exactly.
And so, and funnily enough, Decky and Andrew are actually Gen Z, not millennials. So we often loop into TikTok and other conversations because they're the young folk.
I'm
So we always change her name to whatever we want to be called for that night. Like Lauren, sometimes, like one time Andrew was like technical guy and didn't put his picture up at all. Andrew was the comedy night. Lauren was not funny tech. Like, so we do just random things just to be silly amongst ourselves. We introduce you a little and let you talk a little bit about your perspective on the topic, because you're the special guest, much like you're on the couch with us. And then we do this for every guest, and all of us do it. We kind of go, tell us a little bit who you are and why you're getting dizzy with us. And it's kind of our expression, get dizzy with us. And it's like, why are you here with us tonight? And kind of not the I work for Marnita's table story, but like this conversation matters to me kind of thing. If they only knew, but we always relate it back to the topic. So it's kind of like, if they only knew, the thing I'm most grateful for right now is, I don't know. Whatever it is, but and some of them, like the comedy one, was really funny. Like, if they only knew, the answers were really funny. And what was I thinking? And we just have been no matter what the topic is, we try and think of like, what was I thinking? Like and it could be something very serious. Like right now for me, what was I thinking? Like after a night like last night and learning that our friends got concussions and stuff, what was I thinking booking myself in meetings from 7:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock the next day? Like, that wasn't giving myself enough self-care. So it's like, it's whatever fits in the topic, and it doesn't have to be funny. And then we have extra questions. If the last 2 times we've stayed just on this slide because it was so rich that it's only the 5 of us and we have no other people, that we really got going on it. I have to say, the kitchen one last week, we got on this whole theme about everybody had basically had started major fires in their ovens. And it riffed through hot yoga and other things, that Decky was doing hot yoga anyway. So like it starts being sort of self-referential and holds together. But then we have other questions. How long does grieving last? That we can jump to, and any one of us can say it at any time. So we have several pages of that. And then we always close with circle share in, as always. So just wanted to run you through it. I'm going to turn, I hate this. It's like we don't have any air conditioning. I'm going to actually use my headphones tonight so that I can have my fan on because I'm hot.
I'm so hot too. There's so much work happening outside.
And we normally do a quick check-in before we go live just to see we haven't heard from like Andrew. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm good. We, Deck and I were just fortunate enough to do a podcast outside. We recorded at Mill City Ruins, and we rented some portable mics, and we got a generator from Decky's construction site, and got a guy that does drone work, and we sat in between the ruins and the Stone Arch Bridge, and it was just like 3 hours of hard work to sit down outside and record a conversation, which was pretty cool.
Very cool. What was that conversation on? Did I just see that? No, I didn't see that.
Well, we were trying to do it with one of our good friends, Brogan Graham, who runs the November Project. And he didn't feel comfortable kind of speaking about his company with the situation at hand with Minneapolis. So it ended being Declan and I chatting. And then the guy that does our drone work sat in, and we had a conversation with him because he really knows Minneapolis, and he's kind of a historian of Minneapolis, if you will. So we just kind of talked about how Minneapolis, how the ruins were a very pivotal area of Minneapolis back in when Pillsbury was on the east side and Gold Metal Mills was on the west side, and the Mississippi didn't have a bridge.
It was insane.
Yeah,
it was so fun.
Yes, I could talk about it for hours.
The guy who we interviewed was. Have you guys seen that Minneapolis video of the drone photography or cinematography at night? A bunch of people reposted it.
It's on.
He did one for
Minneapolis.
Yeah, and St. Paul. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
You guys, I'm having a little connectivity issues, so I'm gonna pop up and see if I can get my internet a little bit more stable. It'll take about a minute for it to recycle before we go live. So keep talking, and I need my glass of water. But then I think we're ready to go.
Go for it.
How you are on video.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Do you still see her screen even when she leaves?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I can like on my because I'm on my phone. I can swipe between the different views. It's kind of interesting. So yeah, I just keep mine as the square of view 5 or 6. No, 5. It's pretty cool. Oh, it's insane. Oh, Lex, what was the conversation you were a part of? Like, I'm trying to remember when you were on. I feel it goes back in like April.
Yeah, to be honest, I can't remember. It was one of the early ones for sure.
Yeah, but there was like a ton of people there.
Yeah, it was a busier one.
Super fun.
I'm kind of a blur of work
Yeah, right.
and deadlines this month.
Right. Crazy.
Here we are.
Dude, I like it. South side low. That rips. That's perfect.
Oh, I think that it was one of the very first Weather Together. Remember when we did like a big group? That was like our first big team meeting with all of you.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was like 2 months ago. And
Yeah, that's crazy.
last time.
Maybe even more. 3 months.
Yeah, oh gosh, it's doing almost.
All right, I'm going to rejoin on my computer real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab another water. I'll be right back.
Lauren, I'm going to try to pull this video up of Jay Christensen really quick.
Yeah, go for it. Can you steal?
Yeah, it said it'll take over. Becky,
I'm so sorry. Now I'm live.
Are you on a phone and your computer at the same time?
I was, yeah, at one point. And now I'm just here.
All right, can you see this?
Yeah.
Finest hockey facility in North America. Made only by Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, the Three Arrows Company. A great big drinking mug from Schmidt Beer. Don't just talk about it. Open wide. Hold a second. A second.
Beyond the architecture, Mickey's has been known to be warm as a home fire and always hospitable. The question is, not the yesterdays, but the question is, what will we do now? Knowing that the months and the years ahead will severely test our America. And might I say that as this America is tested, that once again we give our testament to America. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Something new, something different has happened. There is an end of an era, and there is the beginning of a new day.
Sanity.
Yeah, so Jay Christensen was the one that we were talking with today.
Has he done this in other cities or?
He did one, so that was the Twin Cities combined. He did one individually on Minneapolis and individually on St. Paul, but that has been, those are the only ones he's done. He's used the time of, because he usually works for like corporate, does commercials for corporate America, and he works with the Timberwolves.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, wasn't it?
Very well done.
Oop.
As Martin.
But yeah, we were just out there talking to him, and this guy just has so much knowledge on the history of Minneapolis, and was talking to us we talked for like 2 hours on it. It was super cool.
I don't know. And that video kind of just sparked. I know we could probably even get into this during the podcast, but this is a very difficult and it was a very gross situation, and our reality that is happening right now. And we also have this beautiful city that it can be displayed, and it's just so difficult to have the faith, but also just the anger and the disbelief that this is actually happening. So I love that 3-minute video just kind of sparked a little bit of relief, little joy of hey, Minneapolis, St. Paul, there's so much good here. How can we spread some positivity right now during this very difficult, grotesque type, just atrocious situation that happened before us?
Yeah, we
Crazy.
talked a little bit about that too earlier, how do you hold both realities in the same location, right? There is so much beauty and there is so much diversity and so many good things that are happening, but there is also so much racism too, and it's how do you respect and honor both, and hold that as you're moving towards the future that you want to see.
Right.
Right.
Crazy. So insane.
No, I think we're ready to go.
I think we're ready to go, Marnita.
Oh, here, you took back share. I'll throw back up share.
Yes, I took it over. Sorry.
No, that's good. I just want to thanks you guys. Today was a rough day, and I'm really I had been trying to put too many things in a small. Damn. My fan keeps cutting out. It's fair. I can't. I'm having some muscle strength issues today. And when I try and use my muscles too much, my whole body goes into a seizure basically and cramps up, and I can't breathe. So it's kind of a bad thing. So we think it's just a stress response, but we're monitoring it kind of closely. But weirdly enough, I don't have the force to plug in a plug right now and get it to stay in. So I can't plug my fan in right now.
We'll blow on you from the Zoom.
Hi, let's go.
Well, here, I was just going to say there's...
see, now another funny bit for comedy. Hey, Carl, could you come and help me do help me something? I do not have the strength to push in my cord for my fan. The old one was too loud, and so I put the new one there, but I can't get the cord in all the way. The black cord, it won't go in all the way, honey.
Andrea says live.
No, that one. Yeah. Just push it all the way in. I can't get it all the way in. Did you get it in all the way? Yeah. Okay, could you push the on button now? It's right there. And turn it down a little bit lower. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Lovey. Oh, I needed that. That's perfect. You're the best. Nice husband.
If you're not feeling up to it, Em, we can definitely schedule. There's no need to push ourselves. It has been
right.
No, you know what though? I don't. It isn't. I feel like keeping ritual and keeping practice and keeping schedule is helping in some way. I don't know if you're finding having some, that's the thing that been the hardest about this COVID thing is finding a new rhythm. And I'm sitting here now with Decky Gratitude and the Pause and Southside. I'm just loving this. It is healing. This is healing space to me. We're all trying to have a voice and make a way in the world right now. So I'm ready to go live because I'm feeling philosophical up in here.
Let's go.
All right. So there's a new feature. It says live on Workplace by Facebook. I don't know what that means. So I'm just going to do live on Facebook. I just wanted to tell you guys because
Yeah, that's been there, and I don't know what it is. Hey, honey, I've lost my water. Would you bring me a glass of water? I had a big bottle of it somewhere, and I don't know where I put it. Hi. Okay, are we there?
Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, it is live in.
Hi, Marnita here from Marnita's Table, and our team had to make a really big decision tonight if we should go live and talk about gratitude at a time of such deep sorrow that I know I'm feeling in my body. I'm hearing it from my aunties and my sisters and my brothers and my allies out in the world, this deep heaviness and this deep sorrow. Why did Marnita's Table choose to do our third podcast on gratitude? And why didn't we change the theme or reschedule on a night when many of us are mourning George Floyd? Make sure you say his name. He was a human who had his life extinguished at the hands of our police. Marnita's Table is a nonprofit, and we are completely nonpartisan. Equity should not be a partisan issue. It should not be a political issue. It should be a human rights issue, and an issue that under the laws of our country, we should value equity and lives of people of all colors, all classes, but we don't, which is why we're a mission-driven organization that built a model called intentional social interaction, and we bring people together across difference to find common ground. And tonight, we are honored to be here again with the Back Pocket podcast team, our co-producers of Weather Together, our podcast series. We took some of the best conversations we've been doing from our community cast. And tonight we have Lauren and Alexis, although tonight they are Lex. Actually, Lex is pretty much always Lex, or often Lex. And Southside Low are here from the table team to talk about gratitude. They have been leading successful practice, and more importantly, a reflective and connective practice of gratitude on Tuesday mornings, and will continue to do so as we live through this pandemic. The Pause and Decky Gratitude. You might have been to Too Soon Comedy in Crisis, and some of the other conversations that we've been doing with them. We always go live on Facebook Live when we tape, and then we always release on Thursday mornings. Isn't that right, The Pause?
That is correct. Thursday mornings at 10 a.m.
Lovely. And so we'll also drop the link here at Facebook. You should be able to find it on LinkedIn, Insta. I'm not all that tech savvy, but I have people who understand that. So now, for those of you who have been to a Dizzy, which is what we're calling our digital intentional social interactions, tonight we all are starting just by answering one quick question and kind of putting our voice into the space. And it's, do you have one thing for which you are grateful today? And that's a hard question for me to answer, because sometimes it's hard to feel grateful when it feels like we aren't really moving forward as fast as we could around equity. But today I am thankful and grateful that somebody I care about deeply, in fact, a couple, Penny George and Bill George, both dropped by my house today. They support our work. They built the Healing from Trauma work with us and funded that for communities of color. Dropped by, one sent a text and said, I've been up all night, I'm grieving. What can we do? How can we help? I'm seeing right now at this moment, and I'm grateful for it, an allyship that I couldn't take for granted. People starting conversations today with, wait, what? Let's talk about what's really heavy in your heart and what's happening right now for you. And so at a time of despair, at a time of sadness, at a time of discord, when we're seeing one group of people protest with automatic weapons and there's no tear gas, and families out protesting peacefully and there's tear gas, it's hard to feel grateful. Yet I feel that my body needs it right now. So to me today, I am very grateful for the allyship that allows me to do my work and allows me to hire people to do this work, and to put our word out there, because we are a capitalistic society at this moment. And actually being able to do the work and keep a roof over our heads is important. So for that, I am grateful that people are starting to really care about equity, starting to talk the talk and not walk the talk and not just talk it or say that they believe in it. So that's my big gratitude today. And I want to send this over to Lex now. Lex, do you have one thing for which you're grateful today?
No, I have a lot of things I'm grateful for. I would say today one of the things I've been really grateful for is a little thing. I have been rediscovering knitting, and it's a really wonderful physical practice that, again, is a simple thing, but also a practical thing that has been helping a lot with, I think, managing anxiety and change, and it's always nice to have a little something creative and tangible to work on. So
I just got a clarifying question on the knitting versus sewing. So knitting is like scarves and stuff, right? And then sewing would be like smaller, fine-tuned things. Like is it like knitting a scarf, right? That's what that is all about. Is that what you're going for?
I mean, knitting can be many things. You can knit a garment of clothing. The difference is it's a particular technique, essentially, of creating cloth, whereas sewing is linking together different pieces of cloth to make something else.
Right. So what are you knitting right now?
Right now, I'm knitting something that's more of a meditative project. I turned 30 in August. And so I'm making a 30-stitch scarf that I'm going to keep knitting until my birthday gets here. And I try to make it a meditative practice with each stitch, something like a hope or a wish for the future, for, originally it started out being for my 30s, but I think that was pre-quarantine. So, I think I cycle back to a lot of the same themes in terms of my hopes and wishes for the future. But it's been a nice project to return to.
That's really cool. You're knitting it's like you're like with each, because like you're obviously thinking very deep and hard about each stitch, right? And it's like a very relieving thing for you, but in a macro perspective way, you're knitting your own scarf. It's like you're creating your own makeup. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's really cool.
Thank you. I think that the beauty of it is that, in fact, you don't have to overthink it. And although my intention has been to be very intentional about each stitch, at a certain point you kind of disappear into the work, which is really nice as well.
For sure. Sorry, we were doing intros, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to toss it to Lauren.
Oh man, well, you are not the first person this week that's talked about knitting or sewing or doing any type of weaving as a meditation practice. So I find that fascinating that keeps coming up for me. And I guess one of the things that I'm really grateful for is just community in general, really neighbors, and people just reaching out, some who have moved away and some who still live here. And yeah, just people feeling rooted and feeling connected no matter how much time or how much space is in between. It's really nice. And I'm just thankful that I can be a part of it. And I'm gonna pass it to the pause.
Thank you, Southside Low. I am grateful for being surrounded by, again, leading off of what you said, Southside Low, with community, being surrounded by people who are active, who are activists, who are trying to make change, who are using their voice wisely and kindly, but tactically at the same time. Being a recent graduate, and I don't know how long I can continue to use the recent graduate tagline after 2 years, but being a recent graduate, you, like in college, I mean, going to a liberal arts school, you hear about all the things that like you hope for about positive change and, you know, making the world a better place. But I'm able to, at 2 years out of school, be involved in communities that are wanting to, you know, step up. And after seeing George Floyd being murdered, and then seeing the community that I've surrounded myself with over the last 2 years, creating my life now that I'm away from my parents, I've put myself in the situation where I can be an activist with the people alongside of me. So I'm grateful for the work I put in to now be able to be in the situation that I am. So I'd like to pass it to Decky Gratitude.
Thank you. You know, I guess in that similar light, I'm just thankful for, in the simplest form, just the opportunity. That opportunity spans far and wide. And what's the coolest part about it is each opportunity leads to the next thing. And if you go back and listen to our first podcast we did with Marnita, we kind of highlighted, you know, why we started working together, how we started working together, and what it's grown into the last 8 weeks. And that was simply because we built everything from week to week, opportunity by opportunity. And now we're in a situation where we get to talk about something that is pretty monumental, and I would say the scope of our history. And I'm just thankful to be here for it. And like, again, it's not because of we just fell into the situation. It was because each and every one of the people either listening or in this conversation took advantage of an opportunity. So that's what I'm thankful for.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So, you know, we're talking gratitude tonight. If you joining us live, ask a question. I'm actually not even watching it. Normally, are you watching it, The Pause, on Facebook Live? Because I know you're very good at answering questions.
Right, I'm logging in right now, actually.
Okay, good. So just in case anybody has a question, because, you know, people are reaching out. People are right now wanting an outlet to talk. This is just the time when I say Weather Together is open to the public. This is a recorded podcast episode. It is a co-production of the podcast, and we are so excited to have you here. And I got to say, hey, Southside Low, can we just call you Low? I'm just joking. I love that. I actually love this silly little rename thing. I don't know if anybody else gets pleasure out of it, but tonight I'm grateful for it. It's a bit. So I want to introduce somebody that I have the honor to know, and I get to work with this person. Elexis, Trinity, just graduated last weekend, and they'll tell you all about their new master's degree. But this is somebody, to me, who has taught me so much about myself and helped me view the world in a completely new way, and is literally, to me, the embodiment of excellence and brilliance. Like somebody I really look up to and respect, and somebody who is grounded. And that's why that's why Lauren, that's why Southside Low, Lex, and Amina have been leading the gratitude sessions on Tuesday mornings. You should come and join us right now. If you're feeling a need to rejuvenate and you have some time on a Tuesday morning. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Elexis, Trinity, and let them tell you about who they are and a little bit about their voice.
Thank you, Marnita. Those are very kind words. Or, excuse me. Thank you, Om. I have to tell you, I'm a bit of a curmudgeon, and it will probably take me the entirety of the podcast to get accustomed to the for the evening nicknames. But
it's silly. It's just a thing. You don't really have to call us it. I forget all the time myself.
Well, hey, fluent is a great thing to be grateful for, I think. And I certainly push back against the idea of being any sort of particularly special guest. I think the beauty of complicated moments is that they create an opportunity for any of us to step in and begin to contemplate where we can be grateful and where we can hold space for ourselves and for others to kind of grow through and heal through the kinds of things that affect us as individuals on our own journeys, and of course also as families and communities and collectivities in a larger sense.
And would you just why do you think how does gratitude inform your life? Does it is it something that you actively practice? Do you find it beneficial? Tell me just a little bit about that.
No, I have no use for gratitude. What is that what we're here for?
Yeah. Yes. No, I know, but I'm just having you expand a little bit more, because I think some of the insights I've heard you talk about with gratitude, for me, sometimes I feel like I'm most grateful. Oh, I was just leaving the meeting. I didn't mean to do that. When you go back to share screen, it pops up and gives you the choice, like, do you want to leave the meeting? And you, like, for some reason, instead of sharing the screen, you think you want to leave the meeting. It's insane. That I find myself, if I ever do get maudlin, how much it does help to remind, like, having a warm bed to sleep in, having a warm bowl of soup on a cold day, like really basic things that I was very intrigued by something you said in the lead up as we started, and you said, well, I feel like this is a really good thing to talk about, and you can say it in your own words, but I've suffered a number of deaths recently in our close family circle. And people always want you to be happy immediately. And I'm really interested in exploring gratitude as it relates to going through trauma, and the role gratitude makes in having us be able to get up and live another day and to push forward. And to keep taking breaths and to know that we're worth taking breaths. So, but seriously, tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're getting dizzy with us. And you kind of did, but tell us a little bit more. I want to hear everybody, why you're getting dizzy with us on this topic. Low, go.
I love this topic. This is one of my favorites. We usually call this series Be Well anytime we have a health and or wellness conversation, but I appreciate the shift towards gratitude, especially during the time of COVID. I think it creates a space for people to talk about the good. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable to talk about the good when you know other people are struggling. And it gives you a space to talk about the not so good and the in-betweens and the shifting between the two. And I think people just need space to talk about their emotions and how they're feeling and what's going on within them and outside of them, as a part of processing. And so that's why I love this topic so much. I'm happy to be one of the co-hosts for that conversation.
Yeah, I love the idea that it becomes one of those, like amplifying gratitude is really all you need, is the same kind of energy you need to breathe. Like breathing keeps you present. Amplifying that gratitude gives you that fresh jolt of energy of like, okay, I am where I'm supposed to be. These are the things, these are my collectibles. These are the things that are, I hate to plug my own podcast, but these are the things that are in my back pocket. And the reason being though, is because we've always had those things. We've always loved those things and they've never left us. And that's why there's like that trust and a bond. But then, how do you move forward? What do you use to kind of progress into the future? And the future's tough sometimes. So there's a lot of anxiety associated with the future, a lot of unknown associated with the future, a lot of things that, generate uncomfort. But what could you do? Like, what could you use to push yourself? And that's, again, coming back off that idea of the conversation and like you guys creating this platform. I love it.
Yeah, it gives you your reason to move on, your reason to keep going, right? Like, what do you, yeah, I feel that.
And then to further that and play off my name for the night, my name's Andrew, but I'm going by the Pause tonight. And I think what this conversation...
And you don't mean like kitty cat paws either.
Oh, correct. No. Yeah. P-A-W-S, not P-A-W-S. The Pause. Andrew does not like cats, I don't think.
Don't put me in that box, but but correct. I'm the Pause. And with that, like, this conversation is a pause in itself. It challenges me every week. And I was telling Declan this at the end of the last conversation, like, these questions are hard. Like, you actually have to think deeply and critically about your own personal morals, your character, yourself. And if you want to be genuine with your responses, whether trying to be comedic like we have in the past, or, talking about food in the kitchen, and now talking about gratitude, like, you have to think internally. And this is a pause. COVID itself has created a global pause. George Floyd yesterday creates a pause. And what are you going to choose to do in that situation? So I get excited. I again, I was talking to Declan, but right before this, like, I get very excited to have these conversations because I don't have them all the time. So I'm grateful.
Those are all really beautiful roots and reasons. I really love the idea of gratitude as a practice. I think, for good or for ill, I often tend to value things in relationship to their utility. And for me, gratitude as a practice is one of those things that really can ground and center you in the moments when you need it absolutely the most. When I think of gratitude, I think of cherry blossoms in Providence, where I went to college, and I think about the immense pressure that I often felt as a first-generation student, as a financially self-supported teenager, and then young adult. There were moments when I felt so lucky to have this opportunity and was working so hard, sometimes perhaps too hard, to the point where, there's a point at which you push your body beyond what you can do in a really healthy way. And I remember one year in finals, and I was pushing through, trying to meet this deadline that, with a little perspective, I might have considered arbitrary. And it was spring, and it was beautiful. And I went outside and sat underneath the cherry blossoms for a little while. And I didn't listen to anything. I didn't have any screens. I didn't have any coffee. My sine qua non for anyone who knows me. I just sat under the cherry blossoms and kind of listened to the birds, and just felt in my body and felt such gratitude, not for the, sort of larger, grander kind of scope of things, but just for that moment of sunshine and beautiful flowers and, the whole world sort of being alive around you. And I often think about that moment at moments like this, where it's a hard day. And we were joking a little bit before we started recording about, in some senses, and to varying degrees for all of us, it has been a hard week and a hard year, and, a complicated world. But I think having the opportunity to reach out and grasp something as simple as life, your life, the life that is all around us, can remind us of the possibilities that exist in resilience and the sort of beauty of living through any particular moment, even the very difficult ones.
Lex, when you were talking about those like hard times where you pushed yourself to a moment where you physically could not go forward, or where you sounded like you just had some insane mental toughness in my mind. But is there kind of like a moment or a time or maybe a feeling that you had associated with that? Like, I'm just really curious on tapping into that kind of mentality of like, pushing yourself so hard to the point where, you know, you're just exhausted, you're mentally exhausted. Like I would love to hear either like a story or some sort of feeling, a moment of peace there that I'm curious in.
Oh, sure, absolutely. You know, I think like for me, the beautiful moment is sitting under the cherry blossoms, feeling like, wow, you know, I'm alive and the world is alive all around me. But I also think about the root of that kind of grounding and centering moment um, in kind of my own ancestral history. So I mentioned I'm the first person in my family to have the opportunity to graduate from college. But growing up, somebody that I was really close to, my Nana, was someone who had fought really hard for her own opportunity to get an education. She had gotten married really young and started a family while she was a pretty young teenager herself. She and my grandfather had a grand romance. They grew up in Kansas and Missouri, respectively. And you know, had kind of a hard time. And I think as a kid, they were really important figures in my life and had worked really hard just to be able to afford a home, to be able to raise their family. And when my grandmother was 30 was when she actually went back to high school and got her high school diploma. And a few years later, she became a grandmother for the first time. You know, and I remember growing up cooking with her in the kitchen and sewing with her and laughing with her. And I remember how much it meant to her to have that little bit of something that she did entirely for herself, and she never made a big deal about it. And you know, my grandparents eventually lived in a trailer park themselves. I lived in a trailer park for a period of time growing up as a kid. I lived in a lot of different places in a lot of different contexts and moved around a lot. But that sort of central relationship taught me a lot about what matters. And when I think about gratitude, I think not necessarily about the kinds of ambition that have sort of structured my life. I think not necessarily about the things that I want to achieve in my career or professionally, but I think a lot more about those human connections. I think about cooking in the kitchen with my family. I think about sitting under the cherry blossoms in college and realizing that, you know, any given paper is not going to decide your life or your career or the meaning and the possibility of a given day, particularly if you're not taking time to, you know, figuratively smell the cherry blossoms or to grieve or to feel. You know, my grandmother died of colon cancer when I was 16. And for a long time, I didn't really grieve that and kind of put a lot of myself into work. And I realized at a certain point in college that the things often that ground and center us, that give us the reason to do any of those you know, sort of exciting or hopeful things that we have as visions for the future for ourselves or our communities, our families, is often much more simple and closer to the heart. And learning to value that is probably one of the things I'm most grateful for, even as I continue to be on that learning journey now.
I love that.
Yeah, you actually touched on one of the topics that seems to come up quite often um, during the gratitude conversation, that people talk about family and like their positions in their family, and like you just take a look at time and you pause for a second and think, oh my gosh, like I can't even imagine what it must have been like for, you know, my great grandparents or my great grandparents, or, you know, even my parents, and how much I have access to just being born at this time in this country, you know. But yeah, that's come up a lot. And so I'm really thankful that you shared a little bit. Those are stories that I haven't heard about you. And so, yeah, those are beautiful.
Oh, I went too far. Oh, what did I just do? You know, this kind of goes on to the next idea that we always every time we do one of our podcasts, whether together, we answer the same three questions to start, always, all of us. And the next question is, if they only knew. And I think sometimes I've seen it this week where we started meetings and I've slowed down the meeting just for us to be sure we're in our body. And how often, if they only knew that they could actually stop and be human and maybe tell you that their aunt died and that they're feeling a loss before, instead of just bushing through an agenda in a conversation, or how often I remember seeing a story or reading a story. I can't remember what book it was in. It was like one of the Getting the Love You Want, or and it was a self-help book, but it describes a man getting on a bus or a subway, and he has several children with him, and they're kind of acting up. The kids are kind of bouncing off the walls, and the dad is just sitting there kind of not paying attention until somebody sitting next to him says something like, why don't you watch your kids? And the guy kind of comes out of a daze and says, oh, I'm so sorry. We've been at the hospital, for 2 weeks with my wife. She was very ill and she just died, and none of us are, doing very well right now. And of course, the person who, is accused the man of not paying attention to his children, immediately kind of goes, it changes the entire lens of why somebody would be in that space. But this idea that we live in bodies, and bodies, if they only knew that I'm just a human in my body who feels pressured to always be perfect or not to demonstrate any weakness. If they only knew I needed a little bit of comfort and kindness. If they only knew I feel really broken right now. Like I'm having this conversation and I'm partially tracking news outside the realm of this conversation, and apparently there's been looting at Target or something, and so this is one of those things where it's already being used as a sign of black bad behavior, right? So suddenly something that happened 2 days ago with somebody being murdered on camera, they won't probably show that anymore, right? They'll show somebody stealing something from Target and making that an indictment on all black people, and then assuming that, and then basically making the argument that's why they have to be rougher with us. And they only knew that it's hard to feel grateful when that's what people automatically think about you. Lex, what if they only knew in your perspective?
I don't know. I don't know about this particular prompt. I feel like my relationship to others and knowledge in a personal sense is often that I would rather people know less than more.
I love that. See? So the answer is if they only knew nothing.
Like, it's all right that they don't know. I'm perfectly comfortable with that, generally speaking, at least in a personal sense, like I said. I think I'll pass it to Decky. I'm curious. How do this?
I think actually one thing that I like in this situation is if they only knew what it's like to just listen. Just, you don't have to say a thing. What if you only knew that all kinds of action and things and positivity could happen if you just didn't say a thing? Like there's an aspect of like listening for me. Like I talk all the time. I'm, again, the white comedian podcaster who loves to talk, I really like the idea of when I'm around greatness, i.e. the 4 people in this Zoom call with me. I think I need to shut up sometimes and just listen. And I think that's like really what I'm trying to do my best here. And I think I just love it. But Marnita, what you said earlier, I wanted to ask you. You said that you were a little bit unbroken, or if they only knew that you were broken. That's what you said. I would like to know what I could do, what we could do, and what maybe a greater population could do to mend you back together, to put the pieces back and get you back to where you need to be.
Well, I think it's going to be hard to erase, 300 years of collective trauma, historic trauma. But I guess to make a movement, like, some of it's happening, but that
Can I ask it this way?
if I could wave a wand, it would be about equity. It would be about people not excusing. I mean, for me right now, it's I use examples in this. I have a few little pat phrases I make because remember I grew up as a Black person in a very white rural community. Where I actually didn't meet many Black people until I was an adult. And so I was fed a lot of white supremacist stories about Black and brown bodies. And so when something like this comes up, I find myself attempting to dismantle like what I'm seeing, what I've been taught in my brain. And so I have some analogies I use, and I think you may have heard this one. But one of the things I talk about a lot with IPOC is, we never suggest Italians need to solve the problem of the mafia before they deserve human rights, right? We don't say, until Italians get out there and solve the mafia, we're going to think they're all guilty of crime, right? We don't do that. Yet how often we suggest, we see adult men, walking around with weapons, semi-automatic weapons. This isn't George Floyd, just last week we were looking at video of Ahmaud Arbery. We were looking at two men who got in their car, and chased down a person. And the excuse was, he was looking at a construction site. So what would make me less broken is if I didn't go out on the intertube, interweb, interplace, and see white men justifying it. They are criminals. We're better, it's like, last time I checked, we have innocent until guilty in this country. And when did the supposed crime, and one of them was looking at a construction site. And hey, Decky and the pause, when you were, you guys are young men, do you looking at earth movers, and do you like seeing what's happening? I do. I walk around construction sites sometimes to see what they're doing, if it's open, if it's not, I don't like this idea that anyway, I've been talking too long, but my point is the way to heal me, probably maybe just to listen to me talk.
We did.
That's kind of it, like to listen, that it all doesn't have to be perfect and interconnected and coherent, right? It can be incoherent, that there can be pain, and like we need to stand in solidarity with these families, but also how do we move forward justice? And so like one of the things that you're doing right now is you're helping to carry the voices of POC, IPOC, and Indigenous and people of color and people who are marginalized and otherwise maybe don't have access to things like tools to help us support a practice of gratitude, things like that. So more of that, like Oliver Twist said, more please. And I'm going to go to Low, Southside Low.
I'm slightly relieved at Lex's answer, actually, because I was thinking in response to this question, if they only knew, they don't need to know to treat you like a good person, like they don't really need to know, and I think sometimes when things like this happen, we want to tell all the reasons why this person that died was valued or valuable, and they don't need to know. Like, you do not need to know all about this person's life and all the great things that they've done, for their life to be worth it. And I think that that's something that I'm even learning, you know, like not having to explain why things matter to me. And I had a really good conversation with a friend yesterday, and we were just talking about how immediately when something like this happens, we have to try to understand person who committed the crime first, so that we can argue our way backwards to explain why the other person is valuable, right? And it's like, why do I have to do that, right? Like, why do I have to see and first give compassion towards the person who harmed the victim, so that I can like explain the scenario and why it hurts. And if anything, I feel like what I should be doing right now is going within and thinking, if I only knew, right? Like, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What conversations do I need to have with myself? And that's where I've been this week. So I'm going to pass it to Decky Gratitude. Oh, did you already go? You already went. The pause.
Yeah.
Yes.
I pass it to you all the time. You're like my go-to.
If they only knew what influencing one person actually leads to. And I know that's cliche and it's said over and over and over, but trying to positively influence a person across from you, or trying to influence a person across from you day to day, will lead to one person influencing 1,000 people, and those 1,000 people influence 1,000 people, and then next thing you know, you've influenced 1 billion people. And just a little simple thing that's happened just this past week, heading up to the cabin for the weekend of Memorial Day weekend. I was grabbing gas down the street, and a woman was like, "Hey, do you have $2 to fill up my car?" And I just pulled out my wallet. I had $4. I handed her $4, and it enlightened her day. She went into the gas station, came out and filled up her car. And she said thank you 1,000 times. And I hope that $4 was used for what she said, what she wanted to be used for. But that simple act of positively influencing her, you would hope would lead to the next person. And if they only knew that, you know, that continuous act is what brings change. That's my little spiel there.
Love it.
Well, the one thing I was going to say, you know, I've come to the conclusion when somebody is in poverty, and going back to gratitude, that, you know, I realize that we have some very equity-based notions around, you know, I've learned to give money with no strings attached. And if that person actually, if I were homeless, I'd want to be drunk all the time. Like, to be honest, like I actually think that I know so many white upper middle class people who, after a day in the office, right, where they're making 150,000 a year, go, I need to go home and have a glass of wine, and then sort of begrudge somebody who's poor needing to be drunk when they're living on the street and don't have the ring of love around them. Like, I think that, like, so like I it's funny, but I do feel like we were primed, like the impulse to be kind and generous is there, and then it's like, I hope they used it for, it's like, did it make you know, I really actually heard you saying, I hoped it made her life better.
Right.
Like, and even like, you know, look at the ways in which we get sold things by leaders, right? Or other people, you know, that I think sometimes we expect behaviors from the poor and homeless and people to be eternally grateful, eternally. I was standing in a store the other day and I was looking at, it was food, and it was the cereals that were WIC approved, right? And all the cereals that are WIC approved, you know, God forbid a kid could have a box of Frosted Flakes on their birthday, if their mom was poor, right? That, and yes, they're horrible and they're pure sugar. But how many of you got something as a kid that you were really grateful for, that was a special treat, for your birthday or something? And how often we penalize as though, if you ever see this, I call them tales of the apocrypha, stories from people who are talking about welfare or something. And it's like, well, I saw them use it and they had a birthday cake and it's like, why wouldn't you want a 5-year-old to have a birthday party? Why would you have such a limited view of the world that if they were poor, they deserve to have no ease, no comfort? And I guess I'm grateful, what was I thinking? Going to the last thing, and it's just, we don't have to, belabor it, but there have been times that I have learned, because I am grateful that I'm getting stronger and making better decisions about who my allies are. And I have a few family members who believe that I want to be a victim, and that I want to whine and I do not want to work hard because of my positions on race relations. And I had to make a decision this spring to give some of them up. And I realized, what was I thinking trying to hold on to people? It's kind of like trying to hold on to a bad boyfriend who doesn't like you. Like, why do you want to be with somebody who doesn't want you? Why do you want to, I don't have to beg somebody to see me as a human. Kind of what Southside Low had to say a moment ago. I don't have to beg. So what was I thinking even trying? And I think maybe what I was thinking was a little bit what the pause just said, which is, I was thinking that more people could see humanity, more people would be ready to set aside. And how could using some kind of practice of gratitude help them move it aside? And I don't know how you developed this prompt, Lex, but here it is at you again.
Yeah, I don't know. This is, I guess, another tricky one for me. I think a lot of the work that I've done around gratitude and grounding is centered in a place of learning how to look back with compassion at myself and at others, and spending, I guess, less time thinking to myself, what was I thinking? I think there's a certain point at which, and I say this as a person who, again, is very attuned to the practical, to the utilitarian. I consider myself somewhat amoral and pragmatic, but at the end of the day, there's a certain point at which a hypercritical lens becomes a way of shutting down rather than a way of opening up to what is possible. And I find that I think I'm better able to respond from a place of resilience when resilience is what is needed, and from a place of firmness when steadiness is what is needed. And not maybe adapting, but standing true to your own integrity. And sometimes that requires, I think, a different skill set. And for me, I'm much more attuned to that, I think, when I learn and practice, again, back to this idea of practice, when I practice the skill of relaxing around my instinct of judgment and moving into, okay, what can I learn from the decision that I made? What can I learn from the experience that I had that was so negative or that was so hurtful, whether that was based on my actions or someone else's actions or my interpretation of someone else's actions. I think so much of the stories that we tell ourselves can be laden with, with suffering that maybe isn't necessary or that maybe isn't helpful, which is the place that I come to a lot. Perhaps more than necessary is the helpful bit, that, like I said, I think I often respond more appropriately to the moment and the resources of the moment, the challenges, the gifts, the lessons of the moment, when I give myself the opportunity to breathe and to say, again, not what judgment do I need to make about what happened or what I said or what they did, but how can I learn about myself, others, our relationship to each other, and the power that we each hold to participate in that, you know. And while admittedly, like, certainly in terms of, you know, social and structural and institutional barriers to equity, obviously, you know, power is not always equal, but I think grounding in what we can control, for me, it has been a practice that takes me again back to that place of not so much what was I thinking, but what can I learn from what I was thinking.
That's awesome.
Love that.
Yeah, I like that. See, now I'm like feeling like what was I thinking to write these questions?
No, but they were Marnita. They were great.
But actually, I love what that just elicited, because I think that that's a whole, in context to gratitude, right? That's a different way of completely looking at this topic, which is what makes it different. Because I'll tell you, Lex, when we did the what was I thinking about cooking, there were some very funny things. Like, what was I thinking when I added, like you know.
You can only imagine. I think that's the beauty, though, about a creative or an imaginative question, right? Is that it asks you to reflect on myriad possibilities, some of which may not be immediately apparent to, you know, everyone who's reflecting on that question. And I think that is something that we can all learn about and laugh about and really connect over, you know.
And I have to say, Decky's is probably something to do with hot yoga. What was I thinking? I'm just joking.
Oh my God, I love hot yoga.
You're up the right avenue. What was I thinking? I mean, I could go into a multitude of things, right? Like almost everything I do, everyone looks at me and they're like, "What the hell was he thinking?" You know. A good example would be like me doing we did a slip and slide this weekend up at the cabin, and I scratched my back or my like chest up, and it just looks like crazy vertical claws from all the grass and stuff. So like people could look at me and like, what the heck was he thinking? So I mean, I could go into plenty of details, but I think what's fun about this question is not necessarily employing the idea of what am I currently thinking, so you don't have to worry about having the regrets of saying, what was I thinking? Because to be honest, while everybody else may be thinking, what was he thinking? The last person that is thinking that or having any sort of doubt is me. I'm not doubting any of the dumb decisions or mistakes I have, but I'm also using kind of my reflection tool to understand, like, okay, what am I thinking right now? What am I wanting to do? What am I currently doing right now? How am I thinking through it? I think asking those questions has always served me well, and I hope more people could do it.
You just brought me back the slip and slide.
Did you see that video?
Slide with like plastic that we like put out on the side of our house, and then get the hose and make it happen.
That's exactly what we did. We brought it was like a racing, like two people could go on the slip and slide at the same time, but it was meant for 3-year-olds. And it was literally like 20 feet long and like 4 or 5 feet wide, and two full-grown men were going at it at the same time as part of this game we were playing. And it was just absolutely hysterical. We were putting soap everywhere. We had water. It was great.
Was that you and your roommates?
Yeah, we'll send you the video after. It's a slow-mo video of me going through. It's beautiful.
We will be very grateful. And I thought that was very Cartesian of you. What am I thinking? Am I here with my hands in front of the fire? I thought that was very philosophical. It was.
Thank you.
Southside Low.
Mine's kind of sad. Well, no, not really. I mean, I guess what was I thinking this week was thinking that I could be sad alone. And I think I'm just the type of person who's like, I can do it by myself. Like, I don't need to call anyone. Like, what do you mean? I don't need to talk to anybody. And you guys have to understand, like, I come from a very old community. I'm the youngest of a ton of kids, and everybody's so much older than me. So I go to funerals literally like 3 times a quarter. Like, it's just a part of kind of, you know, my life. And I don't ever cry. And so I was shocked, honestly, at like the emotion that was bubbling in my body this week. I was not anticipating it. And I think, like, I had a friend that for some reason could sense and text at the right moment, like as soon as I'd started bawling, like, are you good? I was like, no, I'm not good. And she called and it was perfect and it was exactly what I needed. And I don't know, I guess I'm just shocked that it took me 2 decades plus some to figure out that that's kind of necessary in life. And here we are. Mark this day in your calendar, ladies and gentlemen.
Very cool. Anybody else? What was I thinking?
I can wrap it up with a what is I thinking question. What was I thinking? So this yesterday was a full year of me being single after being in a relationship for 2 years. And what was I thinking at the end of that relationship, looking back and thinking like that, like, did I just waste 2 years, or did I, looking at it as a time where I didn't learn anything, like right after that breakup. But now being a year removed from that and reflecting on it, what was I thinking right initially after that breakup? Like, why did I choose to be negative in that situation? And I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Marnita, about it, how it doesn't need to be perfect. What you say in a very given moment, or what you do in a very given moment, doesn't need to be perfect. Actually, the flaw is what actually leads to more growth than you actually, if you were to do it well the first time. The flaw, the error, the failure is the actual growth. So after a year being single, and looking back on those 2 years, I'm super, to tie it back into the theme, grateful and thankful that I challenged myself in those 2 years to, be intimate with my girlfriend and try to work through a relationship. But I'm also grateful that we chose to go separate ways and do it out of respect. And we're still, quote unquote friends. I don't know how people feel about previous girlfriends and stuff but we're still friends, and that's, it's all part of life. And I'm happy to be sitting here today, and looking back on that, knowing that I grew.
Yeah, we're gonna fix you up with a conch anyway. We watched that one night, and you were like, "So." We were watching that. It was like, Lex, we have an amazing person joining us out of LA, who's they're a really funny comedian who works at Disney, who's a friend of Elijah's, and has been was joining us all over comedy nights, and they're stunning. It's and the pause was having a pause at one night. Like, so
Yeah,
like, she's like, I like goofy white guys. What was that? She's like, I like goofy white guys, and the boss was like, you do? It was really funny.
No kidding.
It was like, really, I have an opening here. It was adorable. I was grateful to be there as part of that.
That's beautiful.
So I'm going to go to the next thing. And I want to actually, we made the questions about grieving. How long does grieving last? How is collective and community grief? But I wanted to give a chance, Lex. Would you like to lead us in anything, just even brief, a breathing exercise or something that we could center ourselves, or the audience out in the world could center themselves just from audio, whether you want to lead us to breathe, anything. Anything, if you make us want to wiggle, anything you want to do with us, or you can answer any of the questions on the screen. You have your choice.
I've been moved a lot lately by moments of collective silence. And I think one of the things that really speaks to me, so to speak, about silence, to pile a bunch of ironic puns there, is the opportunity to really connect with your body and with your breath in a way that works for you. So maybe we could take a moment. We've been talking a lot about laughter and gratitude in the context of grief and trauma. So perhaps we have a moment together to just hold that space. So I hope you are feeling settled in your body, in your breath, in your lungs, in this evening, as much as each of us can be in any given moment. I certainly am, and feeling a lot of gratitude for having had a little bit of time to check in with all of you and hold some space together and breathe and talk, and be grateful together and separately. Thank you all for having me this evening. I do have to step away in a little bit, but this was a lovely moment to connect. So I thank you all for being a part of that.
Lex, it was an honor to have you. And you know what? You know you have to do this before you walk out. So we might as well just give it to you right now. I'm going to throw it to you right now. Is there one to share with others this week?
Indeed. I have been learning new cooking techniques with my siblings. So I think my brother and I are going to try out a new cooking technique this weekend. We haven't decided which one yet, but that is definitely a way we plan to share joy. And I will throw it to Om.
I think I'm going to share joy with others this week. Just by maybe what Decky said, really listening, just being a better listener. I need to work on that, and I'm going to try that. And that's how I'm going to share my joy. The pause.
How can I share joy? My younger brother moved in with me this week. He is working with my older brother who lives down the road. And so the three of us are together, and I hope to see them and spread joy with each other because it's pretty cool. We haven't been together for quite some time. And I'd like to pass it to Southside Low.
Three Musketeers. I am going to I'm going to continue watching a show with my nieces and nephews. It's a weekly show. I think I always try to focus on like listening to people and having conversation as a means of becoming closer and like making them feel better. But sometimes just sitting together feels so good and brings so much joy. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pass it to Decky Gratitude.
Ooh, I love it. Glad I get to finish with this. The one thing that I could do to share joy with others this week is to what we do physically in circle sharing is I just want to go and give someone a hug that clearly doesn't have COVID or close family member, something like that, because I just need to know that they're there, and I need to know that I'm thankful for them, and that is true joy right now, is thinking of doing something like that. So
It's been an honor to have you, Lex, Decky, the pause, Southside Low. Thank you so much for that practice of gratitude, Lex. I just say the other thing I've been doing that maybe some of you will appreciate is my son. I'm grateful that he lives in my house, but when he was a kid, he read manga, and he loved Fruits Basket, and they've relaunched a 2018 version of Fruits Basket. It's a remake, and he and I have been watching Fruits Basket together. And Teru Honda, the main girl character, is so lovely. She's great. Her mother's dead, her father's dead. Like, she has this when we meet her, she's camping in the forest to not be a bother, and she's sort of this extraordinary person. And so if you haven't ever seen Fruits Basket, I'm watching anime. I love you. It's been an honor to be here with you tonight. Thank you so much. Minneapolis, you are my city. We love you. Be safe. Stand strong. We are here with you. And to the rest of the world, it's time to love your neighbors as you love yourself. It is time to come together and solve our collective challenges. And one of them is that we keep pulling apart. From the back pocket, Decky, the pause. Want to say peace out to anybody real quick from the back pocket?
yes, thank you for everyone that has been this far along in the journey with all of us together, and like we say on this podcast specifically, we're grateful to have you. So thank you very much.
It's an honor. Southside Low, thank you for all you do for us, and we'll see you next week. It's been an honor. Thanks.
We did it.